This video is meant for educational and entertainment purposes and is 100% organic, AI-free. Rewind 3.3 million years to the shore of Lake Turkana in what is now Kenya. Someone deliberately smashed stones together to make tools. This site is called Lomekwi 3, and scientists discovered it in 2011. But here's the twist that sent a chill through the world of archaeology. The creatures living in that area, at that time, were always assumed to be far too primitive to pull off something this complex. Think back to your old textbook. These stone tools showed up a full 700,000 years before Homo habilis, the species we've long crowned as the first toolmakers. So, who actually made them? The honest answer is, we don't know. The story of human evolution you were taught in school is usually neat, tidy, and completely wrong. Our real family tree is messier, stranger, and a whole lot more interesting. Dig into it, and we'll find answers to mysteries like the one at Lake Turkana. That image of a single file lineup, a hunched ape slowly straightening into an upright human, may be living rent-free in millions of heads. But the truth is, it's one of the most widely reprinted scientific mistakes ever made. That picture is called The March of Progress, one of the most powerful visual icons of the 20th century. It was first published in 1,965 inches, the book Early Man, painted by Rudolf Zallinger, a celebrated artist who had already wowed the world with his sweeping dinosaur mural at the Yale Peabody Museum. Originally, the piece carried a proud title, The Road to Homo sapiens. But here's the problem. The painting isn't just wrong, it carries something dangerous. By lining the creatures up nose to tail, it quietly plants the idea that evolution is a ladder climbing endlessly upward. And you know how ladders work. Once someone's standing on a rung, there's always someone above and someone below. That ranking is the toxic seed that fed some of humanity's worst arguments for eugenics. To pull apart the lie of the straight line, let's look at something closer to home. Foxes. Right now, today, there are 12 living species of true fox sharing the earth. We've got the red fox, the Arctic fox, the desert fennec, all the way to the Tibetan sand fox. It would be absurd to say one of them is more evolved than another, right? Of course it would. They're simply parallel branches. And here's the bridge. Just like those foxes, there was a time when several different kinds of humans lived side by side on Earth, not lined up single file. Which brings us to a new manifesto. Evolution is a branching bush, not a ladder. To redraw that bush, let's rewind to about 3 to 4 million years ago. Together we'll unpack about 8 of the most notable members out of the 15 to 20 hominin species scientists have confirmed. Brace yourself, because we're about to explore the strangest branches of your own family. If we rewind to roughly 6.5 million years ago, we meet our common ancestor. At this point, a population of primates split into 2 separate lines, one road leading to modern chimpanzees, the other leading to us. Remember, we and chimps share a grandmother. Neither one descended from the other. The most famous of these early branches is Australopithecus afarensis, known to the whole world as Lucy. Living about 3.2 million years ago, Lucy's skeleton was unearthed with roughly 40% of the bones intact. Contrary to the usual breathless headlines, scientists want to set the record straight. Lucy is not the legendary missing link, she's a transitional fossil. The most remarkable thing about her skeleton is that it proves our ancestors were walking on 2 legs long before their brains got big. That fact flips ordinary intuition on its head and reveals a deeper truth. A big brain isn't the only thing that matters. From Lucy's lesson, we move to another branch, Homo habilis, and this is where that unfinished mystery at Lake Turkana comes back around. Discovered between 1960 and 1963, Homo habilis stood about 3 to 5 feet tall, ate mostly plants, and left behind no evidence of using fire. Their brain volume was only about 610 cc, less than half the 1,350 cc of a modern human. Yet their finger bones reveal an incredibly precise grip, tied to Oldowan stone tools. That's exactly why archaeologists were once certain habilis was the first tool-using species. Then Lomekwi 3, predating habilis by 700,000 years, shattered that belief. So, who was the first stoneworker? The likeliest candidates, like Afarensis or Kenyanthropus platyops, aren't thought to have had the cognitive horsepower to make them. This archaeological mystery is still wide open. The technological history of our family is far older and far messier than the tidy, linear progress the ladder suggested. Now, turn your gaze to one of the most dazzling branches, Homo erectus. They appeared around 2 million years ago and stubbornly survived until just 117,000 years ago. For comparison, our own species, sapiens, has only been walking the earth for about 300,000 years. Homo erectus was the first hominid to stride boldly out of Africa, with the widest range of all spanning Africa, Asia, and Europe. Physically, they came strikingly close to us. Shorter arms, longer legs. The famous Turkana fossil suggests they could reach 5 feet 3. On top of that, they pioneered Acheulean stone technology with its symmetrical, painstakingly chipped hand axes, and they had learned to control fire at Wonderwork Cave in South Africa around 1 million years ago. But what makes Homo erectus truly great isn't the stone or the fire. At the Denisovans site in Georgia, archaeologists found the skull of an old man. The strange part, he had lost every single tooth, yet the sockets had fully healed over long before he drew his last breath. In the brutal wild, how does a man who can't chew live that long? There's only one answer. His own people had to chew or soften his food to keep him alive. The most successful species in the history of genus Homo was not us at all. And their greatness was marked by this. They had learned to care for one another. Next, we go underground literally. On the night of the 13th of September, 2013, a caver named Stephen Tucker squeezed through a crack just 7 inches wide, 18 centimeters deep inside the Rising Star cave system. His flashlight happened to land on bone fragments, then half a skull, and the photo he snapped was immediately sent to paleoanthropologist Lee Berger. The result was a staggering trove. More than 1,550 specimens from at least 15 individuals hidden nearly 100 yards from the cave entrance. To bring them out, scientists recruited a team of underground astronauts, slender female scientists able to slip through those suffocatingly narrow gaps. And the creature in that deep cave, Homo naledi, delivered a shock. Their brain volume was only about 465 to 610 cc, roughly 1/3 of ours, and just a touch above a chimp's. Their anatomy is a bizarre mosaic. Ape-like shoulders but human-like hands, feet, and teeth. Human-like wrists but curved fingers built for climbing trees. Though the dating is still debated, the published findings place them around 236,000 to 335,000 years ago, meaning they very likely lived at the same time as both Neanderthals and sapiens. The existence of naledi throws cold water on old thinking. After all, an elephant's brain reaches 4,700 cc, yet elephants aren't smarter than humans. Naledi completely overturns the assumption that a bigger brain means more complex behavior. But the research team made splashy claims that naledi buried their dead and carved art. Science doesn't run on hype. Peer reviewers later agreed that the evidence in its current form isn't enough, leaving the question fiercely contested. A brain the size of a grapefruit may have done things we assumed only big brains could if the evidence holds up. And the hunt to answer that if is exactly how science works. Continuing up the family tree, we drift to Liangbua Cave on the island of Flores to meet the hobbit. Discovered in 2003, Homo floresiensis baffled everyone. They stood only about 3 to 3.5 feet tall. With brains of just 382 to 420 cc, that size would be normal if they'd lived 3 million years ago, but it's downright bizarre for their date of about 50,000 years ago. The reason behind their stature is a mechanism called insular dwarfism. Flores never had a land bridge connecting it to other continents. Their ancestors most likely crossed the sea on rafts or clung to drifting debris. On an isolated island with limited resources, smaller individuals ate less, lived longer, and reproduced more successfully. And so, over time, an entire human species shrank. That same dwarfism hit the island's stegodon elephants too, shrinking them to just about 4 feet tall. To survive, these hobbits hunted Komodo dragons, giant rats, bats, plus nuts and tubers, and yes, those dwarf elephants. Stranger still, the people of Flores still pass down legends of a creature called the Ebu Gogo, the grandmother who eats anything, and many locals still believe this little being never went extinct. The environment has unmatched power to shape a body. It can even shrink an entire human species. Now it's time to talk about ghosts, the Denisovans. Let's start with Denny. Denny was a girl of about 13, but she's the only confirmed first-generation hybrid ever found between 2 human species. Her mother was a Neanderthal, and her father a Denisovan. Her 90,000-year-old fossil is so tiny it could fit between 2 fingers. That we can read the past from this sliver of bone is a technological miracle. The thickness of the bone's outer layer hints at age. The ZoomS method reads the protein barcode to confirm it's a hominin. And finally, the team led by researcher Viviane Slan successfully isolated both mitochondrial DNA and nuclear DNA, locking in her deeply moving hybrid identity. But there's a recent historical twist your textbook hasn't caught up with yet. For a long time, we were almost completely in the dark about what a Denisovan looked like. Then, in June 2025, an intact skull from Harbin, China, long known as Dragon Man or Homo longi, was officially confirmed to be Denisovan. The skull, at least 146,000 years old, has a brain volume of about 1,420 cc, with a massive brow ridge and a long, low cranial vault. This discovery blurs the line between species even further, especially since archaeologists proposed a new group, Homo juluensis, in 2024, suggesting some Denisovan fossils may belong together. It shows that the very definition of species in archaeology is still full of debate. A genetic ghost finally got a face, and it proves science can rewrite an entire textbook in a single summer. Finally, let's close out these branches with our nearest relative, the Neanderthals. The two of us share a common ancestor from roughly 550,000 to 765,000 years ago. It's time to close the loop on the lie we started with. In 1908, the French paleontologist Marcellin Boule deliberately reconstructed the skeleton of an old, severely arthritic individual into a crude, hunched, knee-bent posture. That distorted reconstruction shaped the image of the stooped, shuffling caveman and became raw material for the March of Progress. The truth about them? Neanderthals were highly skilled hunter-gatherers. Their males averaged 5 feet 5. Their brains were every bit as large as ours. They made composite tools by hafting stone, teeth, and bone onto wooden handles. They cooked with fire, and they made jewelry and cave art even earlier than sapiens did. The height of their compassion shows up at the Shanidar site in Iraq. One individual there survived for years despite a withered arm, blindness in one eye, and a healed leg fracture. Clearly, a man that disabled couldn't have survived alone. The whole group took him in and cared for him. And don't underestimate Stone Age medicine. Scientists found traces of penicillium mold in the dental tartar of Neanderthals at El Sidrón Cave in Spain, along with poplar bark used as a painkiller bark that contains salicylic acid, the active ingredient in aspirin. A 2021 study even confirmed that the structure of the Neanderthal ear was perfectly tuned to the very frequency range of human speech. Though they went extinct, they coexisted with sapiens for several thousand years. The result: 1 to 4% of the genome of every modern person living outside Africa today is Neanderthal. That genetic legacy gives us both benefits: immunity, cold tolerance, and drawbacks: depression, blood clotting. The brute in the cave image is a smear that's lasted more than 100 years. And part of them is, in fact, still alive right inside you. Now let's flip the perspective. Instead of proudly crowning ourselves the winners at the summit, the truth is this: we are merely the last surviving members of a genus that was once incredibly crowded. Habilis, Erectus, Naledi, Floresiensis, Denisovans, Neanderthals, all gone. Having just a single representative left is an anomaly for any animal. The oldest sapiens fossil was found at Jebel Irhoud, Morocco, dated to about 300,000 years ago, with a skull so primitive it was once mistaken for a Neanderthal. So why, on that enormous family tree, are we the only ones left? Look at ourselves. Did you know we carry some genuinely strange features? Take the chin. No other species in our family tree has a chin, and no one knows for sure why. Or look at newborns. Human infants are the most helpless creatures alive. Their brains at birth are only about 28% of adult size, compared to 45% in chimps. We're forced to give birth early because of a cruel collision between a narrow pelvis and a big head. And that big head demands a brutal trade-off. Humans have one of the most dangerous births in the entire animal kingdom. Not only that, your brain burns 20 to 24% of your body's energy at rest, twice that of a chimp. Chess grandmaster Anatoly Karpov reportedly lost 22 pounds during the 5-month-long 1984 World Championship match. Whether that weight loss came from pure thinking or from stress is still debated, but it's a striking illustration. We traded away nearly all of our physical strength for cognitive power and expensive gamble, but that cognition delivered devastating power. Leaving Africa around 70,000 years ago, we poured across the Middle East, Asia, Europe, Australia, and finally the Americas. And here's the pattern of the replacer. Everywhere we went, the large animals and other hominids vanished soon after. Neanderthals disappeared around 40,000 years ago, Floresiensis around 50,000 years ago. The important nuance here isn't necessarily that we hunted everything to extinction, it's that we climbed to the top of the food chain so fast that other species couldn't adapt to a new predator in time. It's an uncomfortable but consistent truth. The reason we're alone today may be us, but in the end, we're still part of the family. The only species that frets in the abstract about the distant future, that builds cities, writes books, makes art, founds governments, and launches dinosaur fossils into space. Yet we still forage, still use tools and found objects to solve problems, still cradle our young, still lean on the bonds of the group. Why does getting this right matter? For a very long time, people used the existence of these species to make ugly arguments about humans today. The ladder of the march of progress isn't just wrong, it's dangerous. Science is still being written right now. Homo juluensis was only proposed in 2024. The Denisovan face was just revealed in 2025. The Rising Star cave system is still being excavated and almost certainly holds more secrets. You don't have to be an anthropologist to care. This is your family history, and these are your relatives. Be curious about where you came from, and never stop learning.